My family booked a trip to Italy, just the five of them. I was the sixth person at the table, that night. They charged $9,600 to my card. I'm a fraud analyst. I shut it down in 11 minutes. My father said it over breakfast at 7:14 a.m. on a Tuesday morning while my sister stared into her phone and my mother kept buttering her toast. There were 6 people in the room. I was the sixth. 16 hours later, my bank alert lit up at 11:47 p.m. $9,600. Charged to my credit card by the family that hadn't invited me on the trip. I am a senior fraud analyst. I investigate this exact crime for a living. The only difference between the strangers I take down at work every day and the people I'd called family for 32 years was that the strangers didn't ask me to pass the orange juice first. 48 hours later, the trip was canceled. The fiancé had walked out. The agency had refunded everything. And my father had finally, after 9 years of bleeding me dry, met the version of his daughter he had spent her entire adulthood pretending didn't exist. This is the story of the night I stopped being the family wallet. My name is Victoria Whitman. I am 32 years old. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in the Low-High neighborhood of Denver, Colorado. I work as a senior fraud analyst II at Wexley Travel Payments, where my job is to identify, document, and shut down unauthorized transactions. My salary is $128,400 a year. My quarterly bonus runs another $14,000 to $22,000. I have a 401(k), a healthy savings account, and a credit profile so clean that a Citibank underwriter once told me it was mildly suspicious. I bring up the numbers because my family knew them, all of them, down to the dollar. My father had asked, 18 months earlier at a Christmas dinner, if I would mind if my mother shared my bonus with my brother. I said no. He shared it anyway. That is the kind of family I came from. The kind where your salary is community property and your boundaries are an opening offer. Before we go further, if these stories move you, subscribe, hit that like button. It costs you nothing, means everything to us. Now let me tell you about the breakfast that ended a family. My father is Richard Whitman. He is 61. He started a residential contracting company called Whitman and Vance Construction in 1995. For 22 years, it was a real business. 5 trucks, 11 employees. My father made between $180,000 and $240,000 a year in good years. In 2017, a lawsuit from his business partner dragged on for 11 months, ate the company's reserves, and ended in Chapter 7 bankruptcy. My father lost the trucks, the office, the company name, and the friendship. I was 23 years old. I was a junior analyst at Wexley making $58,000 a year, renting a studio apartment in Capitol Hill that smelled, faintly and permanently, like the Thai restaurant downstairs. My father came to my apartment in December of 2017. He told me, in a voice I had never heard him use, that the family mortgage was $2,847 a month, and they had missed October and November, and December was due in 9 days. I wrote him a check for $8,541. I told him it was a loan. He told me he would pay it back by the end of Q2. He did not pay it back, he never paid it back. That was check number 1. There would be 73 more over the next 8 years. It started small. Mortgage, tuition, car repairs, then bigger vacations, business ideas, loans that were never paid back, year after year. I kept saying yes. The 2019 San Diego family vacation I booked on my Chase Sapphire, $7,200. The travel agency saved my card to the family profile that day. I never removed it. That detail is going to matter in 3 more years. The creative sabbatical, rent in Boulder. The yoga teacher training Madison quit halfway through. Ryan's engagement ring, just a loan, Vic. I'll pay you in 3 months. The $25,000 emergency credit line I opened in my name because Dad's credit was still recovering from the bankruptcy. By December, it was at $19,200, and I was the only one making payments. Over 9 years. I gave them over $120,000, and they still wanted more. I was a senior fraud analyst. I had a spreadsheet. I had every receipt. I just hadn't yet had a reason to print it. The Italy trip became the reason. Sunday dinner at my parents' house was non-negotiable. In October of 2025, my mother added Tuesday breakfast. Just to catch up, sweetie. The third Tuesday, October 14th, 2025, was Italy. I arrived at 6:58 a.m. Mom had made eggs and bacon and the kind of crispy hash browns she only made when she was about to ask for something. Dad was in his navy bathrobe at the head of the table. Madison was scrolling her phone with sunglasses on indoors. Ryan and Brooke, his fiancé, meeting the family properly for the first time, were on the second couch. Dad set down his coffee. He smiled the way he smiled in his old contracting brochures. He said, "We've booked a trip to Italy, just the 5 of us. You understand, right?" I looked around the table. 5. Mom did not look up from her toast. Madison's sunglasses stayed on. Ryan gave me the smallest possible shrug, the body language of a man who had known about this for at least 3 weeks. Brooke looked confused. I said, "Yeah, okay." I did not argue. I did not ask why. I did not say, the daughter who covered Mom's biopsy and Dad's mortgage and Madison's 3 careers and Ryan's engagement ring is suddenly not family enough for Italy. I drank my coffee. I ate 3 bites of egg. I helped clear the dishes. I drove home. I went to work. That was the moment I understood. I wasn't family. I was funding. The bank alert at 11:47 p.m. that night did not surprise me. It only confirmed what the breakfast had told me at 7:14 a.m. The only thing I had not known was the dollar amount, $9,600. Booked through Maremma and Stone Travel, the same agency I had used to book the San Diego trip in 2019 and had never removed my card from. My father had remembered exactly where the card was saved. He had just forgotten, or pretended to forget, whose name was on it. I sat on the edge of my bed at 11:47 p.m. and looked at the bank notification for a long time. Then I did what I had spent 8 years at Wexley training myself to do. I didn't panic. I followed protocol. 11:48 p.m., opened my Chase app, froze the credit card, screenshot. 11:49 p.m. Logged into the Maremma and Stone family profile, removed the card, removed myself as financial contact. Screenshot of every change. 11:50 p.m. Changed passwords on every loyalty account my father had quietly attached to my bookings. Hilton, Marriott, Hertz, United, American Airlines. 11:51:52 p.m. Closed the shared Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, and Disney Plus accounts. 11:53 p.m. Called CD's after-hours line. Reduced the $25,000 family emergency credit line to 0. Confirmed in writing. 11:54 p.m. Called Chase fraud line. Reported unauthorized international travel charges by a family member. Reference number, CHFD 2025-3074-118. 11:55 p.m. Opened the unauthorized charges folder I had been quietly maintaining since 2019. Created a new subfolder, Italy 10/2025. 11:56 p.m. Decline notification, $1,450. Hotel upgrade in Florence. Attempted on my frozen card. 11:57 p.m. Decline notification. $620. Luggage delivery. 11:58 p.m. Decline notification. $389. Travel insurance. This wasn't a conversation. This was evidence. I put my phone face down on the comforter. I walked to my bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face. I looked at the woman in the mirror. I expected guilt. I had been trained for 30 years to feel guilt. What I felt instead was clarity. I went back to my bed. I sat down. I opened my work laptop. And I drafted the documentation memo I would send my chief compliance officer first thing Monday morning, formally disclosing that a family member had attempted unauthorized use of my financial accounts and that I had immediately frozen and reported per protocol. The first person to file the paperwork is the person the system believes. I went to bed at 1:14 a.m. I slept 5 hours. I woke up clear. At 7:42 a.m. my mother called. "Sweetie, you need to come over, right now. There's been a misunderstanding with your father." Misunderstanding? The word the Whitman family had been weaponizing against me since I was 11 years old. I said, "I'll be there at 9 a.m. I called my friend Natalie Brooks, Wexley colleague, senior risk analyst, the only person in Denver who knew the full 9-year ledger. I said, "Nat, they charged $9,600 to my card last night for an Italy trip I wasn't invited on. Mom just called me over for a misunderstanding. Can you come with me? I want a witness." Natalie said, "Victoria, I will be at your apartment in 23 minutes. She arrived in 21. She brought 2 travel coffees, her work laptop, and a small spiral notebook. On the cover she had written in Sharpie, "Whitman Family Documentation, Day 1, we drove to Westminster." The morning sun was orange on the Front Range. I was steady. For the first time in 9 years of those drives, I was not rehearsing how to apologize for things I had not done. If you've ever been treated like the responsible one in your family, keep listening. My father was standing by the fireplace in slacks and a tucked shirt, the contracting bid uniform he had not earned the right to wear in 8 years. Mom was on the couch, hands folded. Madison was in the armchair pretending to look at her phone. Ryan was on the second couch with Brooke beside him. Brooke had been crying. Dad looked at Natalie. He said, "Who is this?" I said, "This is my colleague Natalie. She is here to take notes." Dad said, "Victoria, this is family business." I said, "Dad." As of last night at 11:47 p.m., this became a Wexley Travel Payments documented incident. Natalie stays. His face went, for 1/2 second, white. I set my laptop on the coffee table. I plugged it into the 65-inch wall-mounted screen Dad had bought with my Christmas bonus money in 2022. The screen lit up. I said, "Last night at 11:47 p.m., $9,600 was charged to my Chase Sapphire ending in 4471 by Maremma and Stone Travel. The booking was made under the family profile dormant since our 2019 San Diego trip. 5 travelers: Richard Whitman, Elaine Whitman, Madison Whitman, Ryan Whitman. Brooke Carter. The remaining $9,140 was attempted after midnight and failed, because by then I had frozen the account." Next slide, the full Maremma and Stone receipt. Brooke covered her mouth. I said, "Maremma and Stone confirmed at 8:14 this morning that Dad called the agency Sunday afternoon and authorized the charge by representing himself as my authorized agent. He told the booking agent, quote, 'My daughter handles all our family travel finances and has approved this charge.'" Next slide, the spreadsheet, 9 years, 74 entries, $123,703 in red at the bottom. Dad said, "You kept records on your own family." I looked at him. "Dad, I am a senior fraud analyst. I keep records on the weather. The fact that I kept records on the people who were taking money from me is not a betrayal. It's my job description applied to my home address." Madison said, "This is so embarrassing." Natalie, without looking up from her notebook, said quietly, "Madison, embarrassment is what people feel when their behavior is finally named." The room went silent. Brooke turned to Ryan. "Ryan, did you know?" Ryan said nothing. Brooke said louder, "Ryan, did you know that Victoria's card was paying for our Italy trip?" Ryan said, "Brooke, it wasn't like." Brooke stood up. She picked up her purse. She said to me, not to Ryan, "Victoria, I did not know. I want you to know that. I would never have agreed to this." She walked out the front door. Ryan followed her into the driveway. We heard her say, "Then your family is not who you said they were." We heard her car start. Brooke drove away. Dad said, "Victoria, you have humiliated this family in front of an outsider." I said, "Dad, Brooke is not the outsider. Brooke is the only person in this house who responded to the truth like a normal human being." Tuesday 10:47 a.m. I called Maremma and Stone's compliance line from my parents' driveway. Formally rescinded all authorization, requested full refund. The Rome and Florence hotel holds would release within 24 hours. The Vatican private tour canceled by end of business. Tuesday 12:04 p.m. I emailed Wexley's chief compliance officer, Yolanda Brisbane, with the documentation memo I had drafted at 1 a.m. Subject line: Personal financial fraud incident, proactive disclosure per Section 4.7. Yolanda replied at 12:31 p.m. Victoria, documented and noted. Take the rest of the week if you need it. We'll cover your queue. Tuesday 2:47 p.m. Dad called 11 times. Mom called 7 times. Madison's last text read, "You are tearing this family apart over money." Tuesday 6:14 p.m. Brooke texted me, just one line. "Are you okay? I didn't know, none of it." "I'm sorry." I wrote back, "Brooke, thank you, I'm okay. Please take care of yourself first." Tuesday 11:47 p.m., exactly 48 hours after the bank alert. Maremma and Stone formally canceled the entire Italy package. My father sent me one text at 11:51 p.m. "You have ruined everything." I screenshotted it, I forwarded it to Natalie, I forwarded it to Yolanda. I added it to the Italy 10/20/25 folder. I did not reply. Wednesday 10:23 a.m. Ryan called me, I answered. He said, "Vic, Brooke broke off the engagement." I said, "Ryan, I'm sorry." He said, "She said her parents won't approve of her marrying into a family that lies about money." I said, "Ryan, her parents are correct." He said, "Can you just call her and tell her it was a misunderstanding?" I said, "No." He said, "Victoria, you are being unreasonable." I said, "Ryan, goodbye." Wednesday 4:44 p.m., Madison called, crying. She said, "Dad asked me to put the remaining $9,140 on my card to save the trip. I don't have that kind of limit. Then, he said you were always difficult, but at least you were useful." I closed my eyes. There it was. The sentence the entire spreadsheet had been waiting for me to hear out loud. "Useful," Madison said. "Vic, did he really say things like that about me too?" I said, "Madison, probably, maybe not in those words. The pattern is the same." She cried harder. I let her cry. After a while she said, "What do I do?" I said, "Madison, you say no." Just like I should have said no in 2018. The longer you wait, the more it costs. Friday morning, October 17th, 9:00 a.m. A coffee shop near Union Station in downtown Denver. Public, glass walls, 2 exits. My father arrived at 9:11 a.m. He looked at me with the expression of a man who had spent 72 hours rehearsing different opening lines and had not landed on one he liked. He said, "Victoria, I need you to fix this with the bank." I said, "Dad, the charges are already reversed. The trip is canceled." The refund was processed Wednesday night. He blinked. "Then what's the problem?" I said, "Dad, the problem isn't the refund. The problem is the next time." He said, "There won't be a next time." I said, "Dad, there has been a next time every year since 2018. Do you want me to read you the spreadsheet?" I slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a printed one-page boundary letter drafted by a Denver attorney named Idalia Rendon. 3 paragraphs. 1. The financial relationship between Victoria Whitman and her immediate family is permanently terminated. No future loans, gifts, transfers, co-signings, shared accounts, or financial favors of any kind. 2. Any unauthorized use of Victoria Whitman's name, financial accounts, credit profile, or identifying information will be reported immediately to the issuing institution and to law enforcement. 3. This letter is a final and standing notice. No reply is required. No reply is requested. No reply will be read. Signed, Victoria L. Whitman, witnessed by Idalia C. Rendon-esque. My father read it twice. He said, "You went to a lawyer." I said, "Dad, I went to a lawyer in 2018. I just hired her this Wednesday." He said, "You used to care about this family." I said, "Dad, I cared so much that I confused being needed with being loved. I am done confusing them." He said, "Your mother is heartbroken." I said, "Dad, Mom watched you charge $9,600 to my card for a trip she had agreed not to invite me on. Her heartbreak is a lighting effect." "It is not a fact." He stood up. He left the envelope on the table. He walked out. Natalie had been at a table 15 feet away the whole time. She walked over after the door closed. She sat down across from me. She said, "Vic, how do you feel?" I said, "Nat, I feel nothing." "Is that bad?" She said, "No, sweetheart. That is what clear feels like when you have been carrying somebody else's weight for 9 years. Your shoulders have to figure out what to do without the weight. Give them a week. She was right, it took a week. Brooke broke off the engagement permanently in late October. Her parents, a retired attorney and a hospital administrator from Boulder, wrote me a handwritten card. Victoria, thank you for protecting our daughter from a marriage we would have spent the rest of our lives regretting on her behalf. Sincerely, Hank and Rosalind Carter. I keep that card in a drawer. Ryan was furious for 3 months, then quiet for 2. Then in March 2026, he texted, Vic, I'm in therapy. I'm starting to see what you've been saying. I don't expect you to respond. I just wanted you to know. I did not respond. In June, he texted again, I got my own apartment in Arvada. I'm paying my own bills for the first time in my life. I am 30 years old and this is humiliating and necessary. Thank you. I responded to that one, 3 words, Ryan, keep going. Madison called me on Christmas Eve, 2025. She said, Vic, I told Mom and Dad I'm not taking any more money from them. I got a job at a graphic design firm. I'm moving to Fort Collins. I'm sorry I was a part of this for so long. We talk once a month now. Mom has not called me in 14 months. Dad sent me one check in February 2026. $500. Memo line, first payment. No note, I deposited it. Forwarded the confirmation to Idalia Rendon for the file. He has not sent another. The $500 was not a payment. It was a probe testing whether the boundary held. The boundary held. The family house in Westminster sold in August 2026. Mom and Dad moved into a 2-bedroom rental in Lakewood. For the first time in their adult lives, they are living on what they actually earn. It is hard for them. It is not my problem. The $25,000 emergency credit line had a balance of $19,200 when I closed it. I paid it off in 7 months. The closing balance receipt is framed in my home office. It is my favorite piece of art I own. Wexley promoted me to Senior Fraud Analyst III in February 2026, 3 months ahead of schedule. Yolanda told me in the review meeting that the proactive disclosure I had filed in October was the cleanest example of professional integrity I have ever seen from an analyst at your tenure level. My new salary is $148,200 base. I bought a new dishwasher. The trip to Italy, I went. Solo. Last May, 8 nights. Rome, Florence, Venice. Total cost, $6,400, booked on a credit card in my name only, with no authorized users and no saved profiles anywhere. I sat on the Spanish Steps on the 3rd afternoon. I drank an espresso. I thought about a 23-year-old woman in a Capitol Hill studio apartment in December 2017, writing a check for $8,541. I thought, sweetheart, nobody was drowning. You were just the only one in the family who had ever learned to swim, and they were all standing on your shoulders. I drank the rest of the espresso. I paid the check. I walked back to my hotel through the streets of Rome at golden hour, alone, on a card with my name on it, on a trip I had earned. It is October 2026 now, 1 year and 1 week since the breakfast. I sit on my balcony in Lohi most mornings before work. I drink black coffee from a mug Madison gave me last Christmas, a real Christmas this time, just the 2 of us at a small restaurant in Fort Collins. The mug says, in chipped white letters, receipts. That is the whole joke. That is the whole gift. I want to talk to 2 kinds of women watching this. The first kind is the woman who has just realized she is me. That she has been writing checks she will never get back to people who will never thank her. That her family describes her with words like responsible and the strong one, words that, when you hold them up to the light, are not compliments. They are job descriptions. You did not become the family wallet by accident. You were trained, probably young, probably gradually, by people who loved you in the imperfect, conditional way that people in financial distress love the person they have decided is the solution. The system can be unoptimized. It takes 1 freeze, 1 spreadsheet, 1 letter, 1 coffee shop, 1 refusal to reply. You are not cruel for refusing to be a payment plan you never signed up for. You are not selfish for booking a trip to Italy on your own card after your family booked one to Italy on yours. You are, finally, balanced. The math finally works. That is allowed. The second kind of woman watching this is the woman who has not yet been told the quiet part out loud. The breakfast announcement has not happened yet. It is going to happen. When it happens, you will know for one cold, clear second that the people across the table from you have been treating you as funding, not family. Do not waste that second. Freeze the card. Open the spreadsheet. Hire the lawyer. Send the letter. Plant the basil. Book the solo trip. I wasn't the sixth person at that table. I was the one paying for it. And the day I stopped paying, everything collapsed. The house was always mine. I just had to be willing to lock the front door. I locked it on a Tuesday morning in October. I have not unlocked it since. The walls are mine. The mortgage is mine. The life is mine. And every once in a while, usually around 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, I think about the breakfast, the bacon, the hash browns. My father's smile saying, "Just the five of us, you understand, right?" I understand. I was never the sixth person at that table. I was the table. And tables, sweetheart, do not have to keep holding what gets piled on them. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and join our community for more true life stories. We'll see you in the next one.